You didn't just watch a routine royal update. You watched the most carefully controlled institution in Britain admit that it has reached its absolute breaking point. A king and his heir, standing side by side, voices cold and steady, finally telling the world that the door to Prince Harry's return has not just been closed, it has been locked, bolted, and the key has been thrown away. For years, the public was fed a diet of polished PR lines about reconciliation and family love. But behind the heavy stone walls of Windsor, something far more chilling was unfolding. This wasn't a decision made in anger. It was a clinical, calculated amputation designed to save the patient, the monarchy itself. Have you ever looked at a house that seems perfect on the outside, only to realize the foundation is rotting? That is what we are seeing today. The palace has spent decades perfecting the language of reassurance, words designed to sound warm while revealing absolutely nothing. But silence in a family is one thing. Silence in a public institution is another. For months, the rumors of a secret deal for Harry's return circulated like a fever. People noticed the subtle shifts in the narrative. They noticed the king's weary eyes and William's hardened jaw. Something didn't sit right. The king and the Prince of Wales didn't just manage the optics this time. They tried to redefine reality. They realized that the monarchy doesn't just manage feelings, it manages perception. And that is where the crisis began. By choosing the crown over the sun, Charles has made the most devastating choice of his reign. It is a moment where the mask slipped, revealing a system that values survival over blood. But why now? What was said in those final, hushed conversations that terrified the king more than the prospect of losing his son forever? As we peel back the layers of this decision, you will realize that this wasn't just a health update or a travel schedule, it was a confession. It was the moment the palace realized that to protect the future king, they had to sacrifice the current king's peace of mind. The silence we have lived through wasn't accidental. It was designed. And what lies beneath that silence is a secret buried so deep in royal legacy that its exposure could shatter the very foundation of the British throne. If the initial announcement was the public declaration of the rift, this is where we dissect the cold, hard architecture of that sentence. You need to understand that in the world of the crown, there are no accidents. Every word in the joint briefing from Charles and William carried the weight of 1,000 years of history and the terror of a threatened future. Why was William so resolute? Why did a father like Charles, who has historically been soft-hearted toward his children, finally sign the decree to essentially erase his own flesh and blood from the system? The answer lies in a concept we call absolute preservation. To William, Harry is no longer a brother to be loved. He has become rust on the polished surface of the throne. Have you noticed the way William has appeared in recent public engagements? The jaw is set tight. The eyes are no longer warm but carry a chilling detachment. It is the look of a man who has decided that to protect George, Charlotte, and Louis, he must become the enforcer in his brother's story. William watched his mother, Princess Diana, be ground down by the system. He understands better than anyone that if a member of the family steps outside and begins attacking its foundations, they are no longer family. They are an existential threat. The final decision regarding Harry never being allowed to return was not a personal vendetta. It was an executive order. William reportedly gave his father an ultimatum. Either this reign has Harry and chaos, or it has me and stability. And the king, in the storm of his own illness and waning strength, had to choose stability. Look at the lines on King Charles's forehead. Face reading doesn't lie. Those lines aren't just signs of age. They are a physical map of a painful internal tug-of-war. He is living in a reality where a father's compassion is seen as a political liability. William has utilized this exact weakness to establish a new order. An order where loyalty to the crown is the only metric of survival. The real twist here? The palace isn't just cutting off money or stripping titles. They are performing a memory erasure. You will see Louis, George, and Charlotte gradually pushed to the forefront, filling every void Harry once occupied. This is a psychological technique. When you provide the audience with new, vibrant images of hope, they quickly forget the ghosts of the past. But there is a secret that William and Charles are still trying to hide in this judgment. A secret involving the backroom deals Harry tried to use as leverage against the family. What really happened in that closed room at Sandringham that made William vow never to look at his brother again? Was it a legal death blow Harry tried to strike, that the palace never wants the public to know? The palace's silence right now is a weapon. They don't explain, they don't argue, they simply exclude. And in that silence, we hear the shattering of a final illusion. Harry gambled on blood ties, but he forgot one thing. The crown doesn't have a heart. It only has a destination: survival. It is no longer a family drama. It is a clinical removal of a threat. And William is the surgeon holding the blade. Behind the high-profile smiles and the rigid ceremony of public service, a quiet but brutal constitutional surgery has been performed. When Charles and William confirm the final choice, they aren't just talking about a family holiday or a missed phone call. They are talking about the removal of an organ that no longer functions within the body of the state. To the average observer, Prince Harry's place in the line of succession is a birthright, an unchangeable fact of history. But to those who understand the inner workings of the palace machine, it has become a liability that requires a surgical solution. The crown has always operated on a principle of continuity, but that continuity depends on stability, and Harry, in his current form, represents the antithesis of that principle. The final choice is rooted in a terrifying realization shared by both the King and the Prince of Wales. A monarchy cannot survive with a spare who operates as a rival power center. For months, legal advisors have been seen entering and leaving Clarence House with red boxes that didn't contain state papers but historical precedents for exclusion. They were looking for the legal erasure, the constitutional tools needed to ensure that Harry can never, under any circumstances, act on behalf of the sovereign. This is why the recent updates to the Councillors of State were so significant. It wasn't just about adding Princess Anne and Prince Edward. It was about burying Harry so deep in the list of substitutes that he became practically invisible. Look closely at the wording used by the palace when they speak of working royals. It is a linguistic trap. By narrowing the definition of who represents the monarchy, William and Charles have effectively performed a bloodless coup against Harry's royal identity. They have confirmed that the final choice is not a temporary suspension, but a permanent realignment. The King's decision to support this reflects his understanding that his reign is the bridge to William's future. If Charles allows Harry to return now, he hands William a fractured kingdom. By refusing, he takes the heat of the bad father narrative to ensure William can be the untainted king. This constitutional maneuver is reinforced by a psychological warfare of silence. By refusing to engage with the claims made in California, the palace has robbed Harry of the oxygen he needs to survive. A royal without a role in the UK is like a brand without a product. William knows this. He is playing a long game of attrition. He isn't waiting for Harry to apologize. He is waiting for the public to move on. Every time George, Charlotte, and Louis appear at a major event, the final choice is reinforced without a single word being spoken. The children are the living proof that Harry is no longer necessary for the survival of the House of Windsor. But there is a darker layer to this constitutional surgery. Within the palace walls, there are whispers of a dormant clause, a set of legal triggers that would officially remove the Duke of Sussex from the line of succession should the king's health decline further. This is the ultimate final choice that William is reportedly pushing for. It is a decision that would require parliamentary involvement and a level of transparency the palace usually avoids. Yet, the fear of a regency where a rogue prince could cause a constitutional crisis is so great that even the most extreme options are now on the table. The final choice is the moment the monarchy stopped being a family and started being a fortress again. It is a clinical, cold-blooded confirmation that in the eyes of the king and the heir, Harry is no longer a member of the firm, but a threat to be contained. The bridge hasn't just been burned. The land it stood on has been reclaimed by the crown. While the public consumes the headlines of the final choice, a much quieter and more devastating process is taking place behind the scenes, a process we call institutional amnesia. Have you ever noticed how a name, once central to a conversation, simply starts to evaporate? That is the strategy currently being deployed against Prince Harry. It is not enough to lock the door. The palace has decided to remove his portrait from the hallway and act as if the room he occupied never existed. This is the most sophisticated form of royal punishment. Not an active attack, but a total, clinical withdrawal of recognition. By confirming this final choice, Charles and William have signaled to the entire global media apparatus that the Duke of Sussex is no longer a protected asset of the British state. Look at the recent digital overhaul of the official royal website. To the untrained eye, moving Harry and Meghan's profiles to the very bottom of the page seems like a minor administrative update. But in the language of the Crown, this is a demotion that borders on excommunication. They have been placed below minor royals who the public barely recognizes, effectively signaling that their royal brand has been officially devalued by the sovereign himself. This is the digital exile, a way to ensure that when future generations search for the face of the monarchy, they find a unified front of William, Catherine, and their children, with Harry relegated to a historical footnote. The psychological toll of this final choice on the internal staff is equally telling. Sources from within the households of both the King and the Prince of Wales describe a total information blackout regarding the Sussexes. Staff are reportedly no longer briefed on Harry's activities, and his name is rarely, if ever, mentioned in planning meetings for future tours or state events. This is containment in its purest form. By treating Harry as a non-entity, William and Charles are denying him the one thing he needs to maintain his relevance: a reaction. They have realized that every time they respond to a leak or a claim, they grant him power. By choosing silence, they are slowly starving his narrative of the oxygen it requires to burn. But why has the King, a man known for his sentimentality, agreed to this erasure? Face reading tells us a story of a monarch who is weary of the emotional ransom. Look at the way Charles carries himself in the wake of this decision. The shoulders are squared. The gait is more deliberate. He has traded the anxious father persona for the protector of the institution. He has accepted that his legacy cannot be defined by a family feud, but by the survival of the throne. He understands that to save the monarchy, he must allow William to build a wall that even a king's son cannot climb over. This isolation extends beyond the UK borders. The palace has reportedly sent quiet briefings to diplomatic circles and Commonwealth leaders, clarifying that Harry and Meghan no longer speak for the Crown in any capacity. This effectively shuts down the rival court they tried to establish in California. Without the implicit backing of the palace, their international influence begins to wane. They are no longer royal emissaries. They are simply celebrities in a crowded market. This is the invisible noose of the final choice. It doesn't pull tight all at once, but with every passing month of silence, it makes their return more impossible. The final choice is the moment the palace stopped hoping for an apology and started preparing for a future without him. It is a cold, calculated bet that the public's memory is short, and that a consistent image of a stable, unified new monarchy will eventually erase the drama of the past. The Crown isn't just winning the war, it is rewriting the history of the conflict while it is still being fought. When we talk about the final choice, we are witnessing the deliberate disintegration of the invisible shield that has protected Prince Harry since the moment of his birth. To the world, the loss of royal security, the high-stakes legal battle over Ravek, might look like a dispute over tax dollars and police protection. But to the palace architects, this is the most potent weapon in their arsenal of exclusion. By confirming that Harry is no longer entitled to the same level of protection as working royals, Charles and William have effectively stripped him of his diplomatic immunity. They have signaled that the Duke of Sussex is no longer a state asset to be guarded, but a private citizen to be ignored. This is the ultimate cold shoulder in the world of high-stakes power, the removal of the physical barrier that separates a prince from the chaos of the public. Think about the psychological message this sends. For a royal, security isn't just about safety, it is about status. It is the visible proof of their importance to the Crown. By withdrawing this, William and Charles are performing a social deranking in real time. They are telling the global elite, the heads of state, and the security apparatuses of other nations that Harry is no longer one of us. This is why the timing of the final choice is so critical. As the king's reign moves into a more precarious phase due to his health, the palace cannot afford the ambiguity of a semi-protected royal. They need a clear line in the sand. You are either inside the fortress, or you are outside in the cold. Look at the transformation in the king's public persona. The humanitarian monarch who once championed the underdog is now the constitutional enforcer, who permits the isolation of his own son. This is not a change of heart, it is a change of necessity. The king understands that the monarchy survived for 1,000 years, not through kindness, but through the ruthless prioritization of the succession. He has watched as William, the architect of this new order, has systematically replaced sentiment with strategy. In William's eyes, every concession made to Harry is a crack in the armor of the crown. The final choice is the closing of those cracks. But the most chilling aspect of this disintegration is the quiet precedent it sets for the next generation. By allowing this erasure, the palace is teaching George, Charlotte, and Louis a lesson in the high cost of disloyalty. They are witnessing the clinical removal of an uncle, a figure who was once central to their lives, now rendered a stranger by decree. This is dynastic discipline at its most extreme. The message is clear. The crown is the only family that matters. If you serve it, you are protected. If you challenge it, you cease to exist in the eyes of the institution. There is a secret buried in the legal transcripts of these security battles, a secret about the irrevocable clause. Sources suggest that the final choice includes a legal framework that makes it nearly impossible for any future monarch to reinstate Harry's status without a total surrender of his current lifestyle. It is a legal noose designed to ensure that the isolation is permanent. William is not just protecting the present, he is safeguarding his own future reign from the possibility of a Harry return. He is ensuring that when he eventually takes the throne, the spare problem will have been solved once and for all. The final choice is the moment the royal shield was officially retracted, leaving the Sussexes to face a world they are no longer equipped to navigate. It is a clinical, bloodless execution of status, performed with the surgical precision that only a 1,000-year-old institution can provide. The monarchy hasn't just turned its back, it has erased the path back home. There is a subtle but powerful reason why the final choice has been confirmed now, and it has everything to do with the woman who has become the monarchy's most valuable player. When we look at the clinical removal of Prince Harry, we must also look at the strategic elevation of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. In the cold mathematics of palace survival, Catherine is not just a wife or a mother. She is the monarchy's reset. The final choice was made possible because the palace realized they no longer needed the Harry and Meghan brand to appear modern or relatable. They had something better, a future queen, whose personal journey has captured a level of public loyalty that Harry can no longer touch. By confirming the rift is permanent, William and Charles are effectively declaring that the new core is complete, and there is no vacant seat at the table. Observe the transformation in the palace's narrative since Catherine's return to the public eye. The focus has shifted from crisis management to institutional renewal. This is a deliberate psychological pivot. By highlighting Catherine's strength and her remission journey, the palace has created a narrative of hope that stands in stark contrast to the Sussexes' narrative of grievance. This is strategic replacement. Every time Catherine appears, the void left by Harry shrinks. The public's emotional energy is being redirected. The final choice is the final nail in the coffin of the idea that the monarchy is too small without the Sussexes. William has realized that a slimmed-down monarchy is not a weakness. It is a fortress that is easier to defend. Face reading reveals a chilling resolve in William during this pivot. Look at the way he stands slightly in front of Catherine in recent photographs, not just as a husband, but as a guardian of the image. He is using the public's immense sympathy for Catherine as a shield to execute the final expulsion of his brother. He knows that, as long as the public is focused on Catherine's recovery and her role as the mother of the future, they will have little appetite for Harry's complaints. This is dynastic leverage at its most sophisticated. William is not just protecting his wife. He is using her popularity to settle a blood debt and secure his version of the future. Inside the palace, the Catherine effect has changed the internal power dynamics. Sources close to the king suggest that Charles's decision to back William's final choice was solidified by seeing how Catherine handled her own crisis with silence and dignity. To the king, Catherine represents the old values in a modern frame, while Harry represents the modern chaos that threatens to destroy everything. The contrast was too great to ignore. The final choice is the king's way of rewarding loyalty and punishing what he perceives as a betrayal of the institution's core principles. He has effectively traded a son for a daughter-in-law who understands the silent contract of the crown. But there is a hidden danger in this pivot. By betting everything on Catherine, the palace has created a single point of failure. This is why the security and privacy surrounding the Princess of Wales have reached unprecedented levels. The final choice regarding Harry is also a security measure. It removes a source of unpredictable leaks and stress from Catherine's environment. William is reportedly obsessed with sanitizing the inner circle. He believes that any connection to California is a potential breach. The exclusion of Harry is the sterilization of the royal household, a necessary step to ensure that Catherine can lead the monarchy into the next era without the Sussex distraction. The final choice is the moment the palace decided that Catherine is the only outsider who matters. It is a clinical confirmation that the Sussexes' attempt to modernize the monarchy from the outside has failed, and that the institution has chosen to double down on a refined, traditional, yet deeply personal core. The door isn't just closed, it has been replaced by a wall of public devotion that Harry simply cannot scale. While the world watches the emotional fallout of the final choice, the most ruthless phase of this strategy is being executed in the ledgers and bank accounts of the royal estate. We are witnessing what experts call financial excommunication. By confirming that Harry's return is no longer an option, Charles and William have done more than settle a family feud. They have officially pulled the plug on the Sussexes' primary source of global legitimacy. The monarchy has realized that Harry's power in California was entirely dependent on his perceived closeness to the throne. By making the rift permanent and public, the palace has performed a brand decapitation, effectively signaling to the corporate world that the Duke and Duchess are now private individuals with zero influence over the British state. Look at the way the Duchy of Cornwall is being managed under William's leadership. He isn't just the Prince of Wales. He is the most powerful CFO the monarchy has ever seen. William has reportedly built a financial wall around the royal wealth, ensuring that not a single penny of sovereign or private family funds can ever be diverted to support the Sussexes' lifestyle. This is the economic exile. The final choice is a message to global investors, streaming giants, and publishing houses. If you are betting on Harry to provide royal access, you are betting on a ghost. The palace has successfully devalued Harry's only marketable asset, his proximity to the crown. The psychological impact of this financial isolation is profound. Face reading of the Duke of Sussex in his recent solo appearances reveals a financial anxiety that wasn't there 2 years ago. The bravado has been replaced by a weary, defensive posture. He is realizing that being just Harry doesn't carry the same weight in a boardroom as being the king's son. The palace knows this. They are playing a game of economic attrition, waiting for the reality of private life to sink in. By confirming the final choice, William and Charles have removed the safety net. They are forcing Harry to survive in a market where his value is tied to his output, not his bloodline, and in the world of the crown, that is the ultimate demotion. But there is a deeper, more clinical layer to this financial split. The palace has reportedly initiated a quiet boycott within the global philanthropic circles. High net worth donors and international organizations are being subtly signaled that partnering with the Sussexes may complicate their relationship with the future king of the United Kingdom. This is the diplomatic freeze. William is effectively salami-slicing Harry's influence, one partnership at a time. The final choice is the official confirmation to the world's elite that the Duke of Sussex is no longer a protected player. He is on his own, navigating a world that respects power, not history. Inside the palace, this is seen as a necessary correction. The king has accepted William's view that the monarchy cannot be a bank of last resort for those who disparage it. The final choice is the end of the working royal allowance, in all its forms, hidden or public. It is a clinical, cold-blooded decision to let the Sussex brand wither on the vine. William's strategy is simple. Without the oxygen of royal connection, the California narrative will eventually run out of fuel. He isn't just winning the argument, he is making the opposition's existence financially unsustainable. The final choice is the moment the Crown declared Prince Harry a bad investment. It is a surgical removal of status that leaves him with the title of a prince, but none of the power that comes with it. The monarchy hasn't just closed the bank, they have rewritten the currency, and Harry is holding a wallet full of notes that no longer have value in the halls of power. Beyond the balance sheets and the constitutional debates, there is a quieter, more personal execution taking place, the social guillotine. When Charles and William confirm the final choice, they are sending a clear, high-frequency signal to the British aristocracy and the global elite. In the world of the 1%, loyalty is the only currency that matters, and the palace has just declared Harry's currency counterfeit. This is the social death of a prince. It is the moment when the invitations to the weddings of lifelong friends, the seats at the tables of the landed gentry, and the access to the exclusive inner circles of London society simply dry up. The monarchy is not just a government institution. It is the sun around which the entire British social solar system orbits. By moving Harry into permanent eclipse, William and Charles have ensured that anyone wishing to remain in the king's light must distance themselves from the California shadow. Observe the patterns of Harry's oldest friendships, the inner circle he once relied on for emotional survival. Since the confirmation of this final choice, we have seen a remarkable and synchronized withdrawal. These are the silent vetoes. Old friends, people who stood as godparents to his children or served as ushers at his wedding, are now reportedly unavailable for comment or connection. This is not accidental. The palace machine understands that to truly isolate a royal, you must cut off their social oxygen. William, in particular, has been described as having zero tolerance for any member of the elite who maintains a back channel to the Sussexes. This is guilt by association as a weapon of statecraft. You are either with the future king or you are with the exile, and in the British class system, there is no middle ground. Face reading of the Duke of Sussex during his fleeting visits to the UK reveals the true toll of this social displacement. Look at the hypervigilance in his posture. He is no longer walking through a city he owns. He is walking through a city that has become a foreign land. The final choice has robbed him of his social home. This is the psychological mastery of the palace's strategy. They don't have to banish him physically to make him feel like an alien. By ensuring he is ignored by the people he grew up with, they have turned the UK into a vast, silent desert. William understands that for a man like Harry, who values camaraderie and the brotherhood, this isolation is more painful than any loss of title. But there is a darker, more strategic layer to this social exile. The palace has reportedly tightened the vetting protocols for all royal events, ensuring that any person with even a tenuous link to the Sussex narrative is quietly removed from the guest lists of the new monarchy. This is the social cleansing of the Windsor court. It ensures that George, Charlotte, and Louis grow up in an environment where their uncle's influence is completely neutralized. The final choice is a generational firewall. It ensures that the Sussex contagion does not leak into the next version of the royal family. Inside the elite clubs of Mayfair and the country estates of the Cotswolds, the word is out. The Sussexes are persona non grata. This is the invisible barrier that money cannot buy your way through. By making the rift final, Charles and William have deprived Harry of his elite utility. He can no longer open doors for his new American associates because those doors are now locked from the inside. The final choice is the moment the monarchy proved that it still controls the keys to the most exclusive kingdom on earth, and it has revoked Harry's membership for life. The final choice is the moment Prince Harry realized that you cannot burn down the village and still expect an invitation to the feast. It is a clinical, high-stakes demonstration of the crown's soft power, the ability to render a man invisible even while the world is watching him. The monarchy hasn't just closed the door. They have moved the entire social landscape so that the door no longer exists for him. To understand the full weight of the final choice, we must look past the crown and the titles and focus on the most profound casualty of this conflict, the total, clinical unbrothering of William and Harry. For decades, the image of the two brothers walking side by side was the monarchy's greatest insurance policy. They were the dynamic duo who would modernize the throne together. But by confirming this permanent exclusion, Prince William has officially liquidated that partnership. This is not a temporary cooling of relations, it is a dynastic partition. William has realized that for his own children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, to have a clear path to the throne, the Sussex narrative must be completely disconnected from the Wales lineage. Harry is no longer a brother. He is a historical warning. Have you noticed the shift in William's body language when Harry's name is inevitably raised in global forums? It is no longer an expression of anger or frustration. It is a dead-eyed neutrality. This is a psychological defense mechanism known as grey rocking, applied on a sovereign scale. By refusing to show even a flicker of emotion, William is signaling that Harry no longer has the power to wound him. He has performed a mental amputation. To William, the man in California is a stranger who happens to share his DNA. This final choice is the external manifestation of an internal closure that happened years ago. William is not waiting for a reunion. He is building a future where a reunion is not even an entry on the calendar. The psychological masterstroke of this unbrothering is the way it protects Prince George. As the future king, George is being raised in a sanitized reality, where the drama of his uncle is treated as a distant, closed chapter. This is dynastic hygiene. William is ensuring that George never feels the pull of a rival court or the influence of a spare who rejects the system. By cutting Harry off so completely, William is creating a firewall of duty. He is teaching his heir that the institution is a fortress that requires total loyalty, and that those who breach the walls, regardless of blood, are left outside. The final choice is William's gift to George, a monarchy without a ghost. Inside the palace, this separation has led to a protocol of non-existence. Staff members report that there are no longer any contingency plans for a Harry return during major state events, like the next coronation or the transition of power. The spare has been removed from the machine's blueprints. Charles, though grieving the loss of his son, has reportedly deferred to William's zero-trust policy. The king realizes that his own time is limited, and he cannot leave William with a Harry problem that could destabilize the early years of the next reign. The final choice is the king's way of clearing the board for the next king. But there is a chilling secret buried in this brotherly rift, a secret about the irreconcilable evidence. Sources suggest that during the final breakdown of communication, certain red lines were crossed involving the privacy of the younger generation George, Charlotte, and Louis. To William, this was the unforgivable sin. He doesn't just see Harry as a critic of the crown. He sees him as a threat to the psychological safety of his children. This is why the final choice is so absolute. It is a father's protection disguised as a prince's duty. William is not just closing a door on a brother. He is sealing a tomb on a shared past to ensure it cannot haunt his children's future. The final choice is the moment the brothers-in-arms became sovereign and stranger. It is a clinical, high-stakes demonstration of the crown's ability to prioritize the institution over the individual, no matter how close the bond. The monarchy hasn't just chosen a side, it has redefined the family tree, and Harry's branch has been surgically removed to save the trunk. We have reached the end of the psychological and constitutional journey, the final stage of what history will likely record as the Great Realignment. When Charles and William confirm the final choice, they are not just ending a feud, they are christening a new era. We are looking at a monarchy that has successfully shed its skin. The drama, the leaks, and the spare narrative have been purged, leaving behind a core that is leaner, harder, and more focused on survival than ever before. This is the new dawn, a morning where the sun rises on a palace that no longer looks toward California for approval or reconciliation. The silence that now hangs over the Sussexes is not a temporary quiet. It is the permanent atmosphere of the new reign. Observe the king in these concluding moments of the crisis. He has fulfilled his role as the sacrificial bridge. By allowing William to lead the charge in the exclusion of Harry, Charles has ensured that the sins of the father do not pass on to the son. He has taken the emotional weight of the family collapse upon himself, so that William can ascend to a throne that is unencumbered by the distractions of the past. This is the ultimate act of institutional love, a king who sacrifices his personal peace to guarantee the stability of his successor. Charles understands that his legacy will not be defined by the son he lost, but by the monarchy he saved. He has successfully transitioned the crown from a sprawling, vulnerable family business into a focused, high-security state enterprise. For Prince William, the final choice is the foundation of his future power. He has proven to the men in gray and to the global public that he possesses the sovereign steel required to rule. He is no longer the grieving son or the angry brother. He is the clinical king in waiting. He has taught the world that the crown is not a birthright that can be weaponized against the state, but a duty that demands total submission. By erasing Harry from the narrative, William has removed the emotional trap that plagued his father's generation. He has ensured that when George eventually takes the throne, he will inherit a palace that is a fortress, not a soap opera. This is generational warfare won by the side that chose silence over noise. But what of the ghost of the spare? Harry now exists in a state of perpetual limbo, a prince in title, but a private citizen in reality, disconnected from the source of his power. The palace's strategy has worked. By refusing to engage, they have turned his grievances into background noise. He is a man who burned his bridges only to find that the crown didn't need them to cross into the future. The final choice is the ultimate confirmation that the monarchy is an entity that exists independent of the individuals within it. It is a machine that prioritizes the office over the officer. Harry's exclusion is the living proof that no one, no matter how beloved or how high-born, is bigger than the institution itself. As we close this analysis, we must look at the unshakable foundation that remains. The monarchy has survived 1,000 years of wars, scandals, and revolutions by knowing when to prune its own branches. The final choice regarding Harry is simply the latest and perhaps most surgical example of that survival instinct in action. The House of Windsor has retreated behind its walls, reinforced its defenses, and chosen a path of rigid, disciplined continuity. The era of the rebel prince is over. The era of the fortress monarchy has begun. The final choice is the moment the crown stopped looking back. It is a clinical, cold, and final confirmation that the future belongs to those who stay within the lines. The door is not just shut, the house has moved on, and the world is now watching a monarchy that has learned the most powerful lesson of all, that in the Game of Thrones, the only thing more dangerous than a rival is a silence that never ends.